Mid-caps lead as the market notches up more gains. Utilities and energies are the big gainers, even as healthcare and consumer durables are the big drags. Morgan Stanley's Jonathan Garner tells CNBC-TV18 that India is poised to become the largest emerging market, and index heavyweights like Reliance Industries could see serious global investor attention. Tata Power is likely to have submitted bids for privatization of two power distribution companies in Uttar Pradesh. The state is looking at a PPP model with 51% private holding, for which it has invited advisors. The board of Aditya Birla Fashion clears a preferential issue of shares to raise near 2,400 crore rupees to trim its debt, while the promoters will bring in about 1,300 crore rupees. Fidelity Group will infuse over 1,080 crore rupees. The QIP to raise 2,500 crore rupees is also on the cards. JP Morgan's Jahangir Aziz tells CNBC-TV18 the rupee needs to depreciate to bring the exchange rate back to normal. He, however, sees RBI staying its course on easing with a rate cut in February. Hello, good afternoon. You've tuned into CNBC-TV18. You're watching Business Lunch with me, Vinny Motiwala. A quick look at what the market is doing this afternoon. Not a bad day coming in, right? We were expecting a subdued start. Right now, also what we're seeing is the similar expectation that we had in the morning. So 60 points uptick is what we're seeing coming in for the Nifty, managing to hold on to 23,238 levels. One point of time, it was below the 23,200 mark, but we've seen it move in the green region today. It's not slipped into the red. Normally, in the second half of the trading session, let's wait out for what happens in that second half. You know, if it manages to actually sustain to this levels, that will be something interesting to watch out for. As of now, 0.3% of gains, almost near the day's highest point. Around that mark is what we're watching out for the Nifty 50 as well as the Sensex. That is also managing to hold on to green today in trade. Almost 0.3% of gain is what the Sensex is seeing as well. 0.4%, 76,789 is what we're seeing the Sensex at. Broader markets, that's where the outperformance is coming in today also as well from the markets. So mid and small cap, that continues to do well. We're seeing the Nifty mid cap at the day's highest point, Nifty small cap also at the day's highest point. And remember, in the morning, both these had actually slipped into the red, and now they're coming back to the green at the day's highest point. So good recovery coming in the mid and small cap. Let's look at some of these outperformers in terms of sectors. Nifty Realty, that's managing to hold on to very strong gains. Top sectoral gainer today. So Brigade Enterprises, DLF, Phoenix Mills, all of them are managing to hold on to gains. And we have Nifty Energy. That is also managing to hold on to good gains in trade today. So these are two top sectoral gainers in trade. While in terms of big movers that we should talk about, or stocks that are seeing some good traction today, is one, Devyani International, BSC, Welspun Corp, as well as Keynes Technology, and do not forget Trent also is seeing some good action in trade. So these are the top movers in terms of stocks that we're seeing coming in, either on the back of some news flows coming in, or even there are some of them who have brokerage notes as well, and some of them seeing good volumes in trade. But yes, that's how the market setup is looking like. Mid and small cap is doing pretty well, and that is what we're watching out for in the second half of the trading session. But today's show, let's get started with that. And we're going to start today's show with the CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Now, Tata Power is likely to have submitted bids for privatization of two Uttar Pradesh discoms. Vivek is joining in with us to tell us what is he picking up on this front. Vivek.
Well, that's right. So it's an important development as far as the entire power sector is concerned. Privatization of discoms, something that's been the ask of both the discoms, power financiers, as well as private utility players, is back in focus. On January 12th, the UP state actually went ahead and invited tenders. This is to go ahead and call for transaction advisors to help in PPP JVs or in the privatization of discoms. Now, out of the 5 discoms that the UP state government holds, they have invited bids for 2 of these 5 discoms. And what we understand from our sources is that Tata Power is interested, evinced interest, also looking to go ahead and submit bids as far as acquiring these particular discoms are concerned. Now, how will this particular PPP JV work? 49% will continue to be held by the UP state government or the discom. Another 51% will be held by the eventual winner of the entire bidding process. So 51% part of the JV will be held by the private utility player. So an important development. It's a development, that will most likely take quite a bit of time to fructify, given the fact that this is a sensitive topic, especially in terms of both unions as well as enough votes coming through for going ahead and getting votes on board for the entire privatization process. It's an important development in the past space, and we'll keep track of this particular development. We reached out to Tata Power at this point of time. They haven't given us any comments as yet.
Okay, Vivek, thank you so much for the latest update coming in on Tata Power, and we'll keep you all more updated with any news flow that we have around this one. But moving on, now foreign portfolio investors have sold over 25,000 crore rupees in January so far. Speaking to Shireen Pan at the CNBC-TV18 Global Leadership Summit on November 14th, Uday Kotak had already warned about FPI moving out of India and stressed for the need to be ready for global shocks this year. Listen in.
I think these are cycles. We have to respect markets. You want demand and supply to determine, of quality paper, of course, to determine how valuations happen and how the marketplace develops. But the market is getting larger. You're getting more and more supply, more and more demand. That's the way to go for the future. But we have to be ready for a global shock. A $900 billion stock of FPI is not a small number. And we have to be ready to be able to absorb that if that moves. And the supply of paper has to be commensurate with the supply of money.
You're saying the probability of that kind of an exit is a real one today?
No, I don't think $900 billion
No, obviously not 900 billion, but a significant part.
But can a few $1 billion go? Can 5-10% go? We should be ready for it.
But earlier on in the day, we spoke to Jonathan Garner, Chief Asia and Emerging Markets Equity Strategist at Morgan Stanley, who is bullish about India as an investment destination compared to the other Asian markets. Listen in to what more he had to say.
The weight of India in the EM index has actually been going up. And with the domestic bid very strong, valuations are relatively elevated. I wouldn't say they're extreme, but they're relatively elevated. We expect foreigners to be very engaged in the Indian market this year. Over time, it's on its way to being the largest market in EM. And that means global investors are going to pay a lot more attention to India than they have in the past. What's important, I think, is that GDP growth is over 6%. We're forecasting 6.3% and then 6.5% this year and next, the year ending March and then the following year. That inflation remains moderate, a little over 4%. The interest rates, we get 2 rate cuts in our view, and we think it's a 2 to 3 quarter phenomenon. If we're wrong, if it's a 2 to 3 year phenomenon and earnings growth falls away substantially, then our call on the market will be wrong. So whereas we're overweight India, for example, we're underweight Korea and Taiwan. So in Korea and Taiwan, tech means tech hardware, semiconductors. And there you've shifted from what we call the AI enabler or infrastructure rollout phase to what's now the adopter phase. You are going to see a slew of tariff and non-tariff actions, and that's going to be an issue for the more trade-dependent and US-exposed markets in Asia.
Also, earlier on in the day, we managed to speak to Jahangir Aziz, Head of Emerging Market Economics Research at JP Morgan, to get his views on the change in tariff as well as immigration policy, as well as the impact on dollar after Trump takes charge. Let's listen in to that conversation.
China and Malaysia and Vietnam, through which Chinese transshipment goes through, will be targeted. We had 60% tariff on China, so China and tariff is 20% at present. We expected it to go to 60%. Then our sense is that on January 20th or that week of 20th, you're probably going to get many, many more countries under the tariff umbrella than just China and Malaysia and Vietnam. Any kind of FX arithmetic, if you break it down between the growth differential between US and the rest of the world, the interest rate differential, even after, especially after the change in the Fed call that we have done after the non-farm payroll came out last week. If you take those two factors, which are the usual drivers of dollar strength, at best you can say that the market is pricing in maybe 6-7% of tariff increase. That's the extreme. So the tariff right now is about 2.3%, right? So 2.3%, you add about 6-7%. That's about all that the dollar is pricing in this point in time. It could easily be significantly larger than that. We have already taken out all rate cuts for the first half of the year. We just have 2 more rate cuts, one in June, the other in September, and that's it. I think a 3% depreciation is enough to take away that rate cut, but our depreciation higher than that, yeah, possibly the February rate cut gets pushed up, but we do have a rate cut in February. In fact, we have 100 basis points of rate cut in 2025 price for the RBI.
Okay, on that note, we're going to slip into a very short break. But when we return, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Mumbai and has dedicated 3 new ships into the Indian Navy. We'll get you more on this news on the other side. Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned into Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Let's move on, and now the RBI has announced reshuffle of Deputy Governor portfolios following the retirement of Michael Patra. M. Rajeshwar Rao has been appointed to lead the critical department of monetary policy just ahead of the upcoming Monetary Policy Committee meeting scheduled on February 5th to February 7th. The Financial Market Operations Department has been assigned to Deputy Governor T. Ravi Shankar, and the RBI said that the distribution of portfolios among the deputy governors will be with effect from today. Let's move on, and what sources are telling CNBC-TV18 that NARCL has emerged as a loan suitor to acquire JP Associate loans from its lenders. Ritu is joining in with us to give us more details of this one. Ritu.
Thanks for that. The National Asset Reconstruction Company, or the NARCL, has emerged as the single suitor to acquire the stress loans of Jayaprakash Associates from its lenders after a Swiss auction that was conducted by its lenders did not see any participation from any other potential suitors. Now, we have been reporting that NARCL had offered about 12,000 crores to acquire the loans of Jayaprakash Associates from its lenders, and that had triggered a Swiss auction process whereby lenders had invited counter bids, keeping 12,000 crores as the base price. But we've been given to understand from sources that given one, that lenders had required 100% upfront cash payment in this auction, and two, the account itself is quite complicated and undergoing insolvency and bankruptcy proceedings, led to no real suitors coming forward, even though initially as many as 6 ARCs did show an interest. So that leaves the NARCL as the single suitor. As the next step, we've been given to understand that banks will seek individual board or committee approvals as required to sell the loan to NARCL to transfer this asset. And this offer of 12,000 crore would translate to about a 23% plus recovery, but not all of it will be in the form of cash. About 15% will be the upfront cash payment from this 12,000 crores if approved, and the remaining 85% is going to be in the form of security receipts. Remember, Jayaprakash Associates is undergoing insolvency proceedings and is facing claims of more than 52,000 crores from more than 24 lenders led by State Bank of India.
Thank you so much for that, Ritu. But speaking at CNBC-TV18 and EY's AI Forward Summit, the Secretary of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology revealed that it had been receiving feedback from electronics and industry players that import of capital goods from China was being constrained and held up at the Chinese ports. Now, companies like Foxconn have had capital equipment being held at the ports in China for several months now. Industry feedback also says that revealed that while there was a delay right now, that were not hampering the production further. Production as of now, further disruptions could actually jeopardize future production and expansion plans. Let's listen in to what he had to say on terms of this.
This is what companies are telling us, that export of capital goods in some senses is getting constrained, and so far, I mean, the issue on visas and so on is that there's a process of approval of visas for people coming from China, which we are following. Companies are telling us that they sense certain restrictions being placed on them.
And now moving on, over the past few years, innovation in generative AI has progressed at an extraordinary pace, and innovation in AI surged in 2024, marking a transformative year for the technology. EY's recent report, which was unveiled last evening, offers a bird's eye view of India's AI adoption and implementation journey. The report, titled AI Idea, was launched by Mahesh Makhija, technology consulting leader at EY India, Secretary of the Ministry of Electronics, and CNBC-TV18's Managing Director Shireen Bhan. The EY report estimates that the adoption of generative artificial intelligence has the potential to reshape 38 million jobs in India, delivering a 2.6% productive boost to the Indian economy through gains in organized sector. Okay, let's move on from that, and news coming in from Mumbai, where we have PM Narendra Modi, who has dedicated 3 new ships into the Indian Navy: INS Surat, INS Nilgiri, as well as INS Vaksher, that were all made in India. They are expected to not only boost India's blue water capabilities, but also help country's local defense manufacturing. Hailing the historic commissioning of ships, PM Narendra Modi said that it is the first time that a destroyer, a frigate, as well as a submarine have been commissioned together. PM Modi will also inaugurate a new temple in Navi Mumbai and meet the Mahayuti MLAs later on in the day. And moving on to some news coming in from the national capital now, Aam Aadmi Party convener Arvind Kejriwal is set to file his nomination from the New Delhi Assembly seat today. Ahead of the filing nominations, he paid a visit to a popular temple in the area before proceeding on to march with several women supporters. Arvind Kejriwal, who served as the Chief Minister until September, has won the New Delhi seat thrice since 2013. Moving on, and in key highlights for the history books, Congress Parliamentary Chief Sonia Gandhi, along with Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge, inaugurated the party's new headquarters, the Indira Gandhi Bhavan, located at Kotla Road in New Delhi. Before this, the party operated from the old headquarters in Akbar Road, was in function for the past 47 years. The party had earlier stated that the new state-of-the-art AICC headquarters symbolized the Congress is continuing mission to uphold the vision of its stalwarts. On that note, we're going to slip into a very short break, viewers. Don't go anywhere, because when we return, we'll get you the latest update that is coming in on the Los Angeles wildfires, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18. Quick look at the market. In just 20 minutes that we started the show, we were seeing the market holding on to 23,200, and now look at it, it's just slipped into the red, almost at that flat line, flip-flopping between the red and the green. So, you know, very muted day. Like we were saying, we should watch out for the second half of the trading session. Normally, we see a change coming in there. So, yes, 23,170, around that mark is what the Nifty is at. Let's see what that happens and what happens in the second half of the trading session. Let's pull up the mid and small cap. Have they also given up gains? That's going to be important to watch out for with that, because mid and small cap also seems like a slight bit of a decline that has come in from the day's highest point for the Nifty mid cap as well as the small cap, though still outperforming the benchmark indices. But yes, that's the market as of now. Let's move on and into some international news that we have coming in for y'all. Now, US securities regulator sues Elon Musk over purchase of Twitter shares. According to SEC, Musk's $44 billion purchase of Twitter, which is now called X, violated securities law by amassing a large stock position in the social media company without filing the proper notification. The complaint also said that he had waited 11 days before filing the required disclosure with the SEC. And moving on to some more updates, Israel and Hamas are inching closer to a ceasefire deal, even as IDF continues to pound Gaza. Incoming US President Donald Trump has hinted at a truce deal by the end of this week. CNBC's Dan Murphy has the latest update on this.
Negotiators are optimistic that a Gaza ceasefire deal may be closer than ever. They're now thrashing out the details of a final agreement after a marathon session of talks. Qatar's foreign ministry spokesperson saying they are now in the final stages. Hamas says it is hopeful but is waiting for Israeli maps on troop withdrawals. An Israeli official said talks had reached a critical stage, but they are not there yet. US President Joe Biden also spoke with Egypt's President al-Sisi by phone and said he would continue to keep in close contact in the coming hours. They both emphasized urgency. There's been no let-up in Israel's offensive in the enclave, with medics saying over a dozen more people were killed in fresh strikes on Tuesday.
And some more international news updates coming in. This time it's from South Korea. The South Korean authorities have arrested the impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol over insurrection accusations related to his martial law declaration. Earlier during the day, more than 3,000 police officers and anti-corruption investigators had gathered at his residence to detain him. He is the first sitting president to be arrested in the country's history. Millions of people across South California faced new wildfire warnings on Tuesday as strong winds blew across the region in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, reports suggest that Oscars could be postponed or cancelled this year, and this is due to the fires that are happening there. CNBC's reporter Brewer is joining in with us from there.
I'm on the command center here, Carl, for CAL FIRE and other first responders. It's along the Pacific Coast Highway right next to the ocean. And this is where officials are working to make it clear there are no raging flames right now in the Palisades fire nor in the Eaton fire. Those containment percentages mean how much of the land firefighters have cleared, going in, mopping up hot spots, checking for heat pockets and for underground areas where flames might reignite. And of course, that's a real threat with the winds picking up again. Any coals create the potential for sparking raging flames again. The public information officer told me they won't call it 100% contained until the crews feel comfortable walking away. Meanwhile, the damage to the infrastructure is so extreme. You see here Verizon and AT&T, they're setting up mobile towers across these areas to try and get cell service. But even without the residents back, the demand from first responders is so great that the signals are often spotty, as you might have seen from our live shots, or in some cases non-existent. Verizon told us this morning one of its engineers actually figured out a way to connect the mobile towers to underground fiber network, increasing the capacity by 100 times. Gotta love those engineers. One more note here. I want to show you the charred hillsides right behind us. Again, this is along the beach in Pacific Palisades, which saw the flames racing down the hillsides, charring it. It's called a burn scar, and it becomes extremely vulnerable to mudslide. Now, this is supposed to be the rainy season in California. Governor Newsom has ordered state agencies to come up with mitigation plans to try and reduce the threat of those mudslides. It would be a real problem here, as you can see, because this is a major thoroughfare, the north-south thoroughfare from Malibu to Santa Monica.
Okay, and with that, we're absolutely out of time on this edition of Business Lunch, closing it with Nifty below the 23,200 mark. But don't go anywhere. Midcap Radar is up next to take you through the action.
And your son's sailing every day.
So, talk about all the lessons and all of that.
Are we on the cusp of a breakout moment for the experience economy in India?
It's like the analogy from Formula One. So the car that's in front of you is cutting through and creating the slipstream and using more power and energy.
Yeah.
And the guy who's behind you is using 25% less. And he can press the DRS and get ahead of you.
Yes.
We live in 4 Indias. We live in the London of India, which is about 5 million people. And then there's about 50 to 60 million Indians, which I call the United Kingdom of India. Then there's 400 million Indians, which I call the Brazil of India. And then you've got about 300 to 350 million Indians, which I call the Africa of India.
Let's address the issue that you've been dealing with in the last few months on account of what's happened with Coldplay. You've got investigative agencies, you've got the EOW, you've got the GST authorities.
I've got a clean conscience. My karma is good. I sleep well.